Welcome to episode 56 of the RXP podcast, where three working professionals talk about the games, movies, and TV shows that they love to enjoy in their free time. I'm your host for today's episode, Alex, and joining me, as usual, are my co-hosts, Matt.
What's going on?
And Tiffany.
Heyo!
And for today's episode, it's going to be a follow-up to last week's episode where we talked about our top 6 games of 2021. For this, we're going to be talking about our top 6 experiences of 2021. And to give a little bit more definition to that, I would say that for us here at RXP, experiences is essentially anything that we've experienced in 2021 besides the games we played. So as broad or as narrow as that may be, who knows? I have no idea what my co-hosts are bringing to the table today, but similar to last week's episode, we're going to be going from our number 6 experience up to our number 1 experience in order in a round-robin fashion. And to start things off... Oh, wait. Tiffany has a comment to make.
I do. So I just want the audience to know that last year we had all this combined into one top 6 experience, which included games, TV shows, movies, everything, the whole shebang. You should give that a listen for our top 2020 experiences. But these fools were like, yo, I played so many games this year. I can't, don't contain me to 6. So then they're like, let's do 12. And I'm like, what? And now here we are.
Yeah, for reference, that episode is episode number 14. So go check that out on podcast services available to you. And in case you missed it at the end of last week's episode, I'll just announce it again here. We're now on YouTube. So in case you've been listening to us on podcast services around the globe and you'd rather listen to us on YouTube, go check us out. The YouTube channel is RXP Space Podcast. And from last week's episode onward, we're going to be uploading every episode each week to the YouTube channel. And we're going to try and do a backlog of maybe our peer review episodes. And if there is demand, let us know in the comments of this video or any of the videos, / also write into rxp.podcast@gmail.com or tweet at us rxp_podcast and let us know if you want us to also upload our back catalog of prior episodes to YouTube as well, and we will try to do so. So with that, with housekeeping out of the way, here's my number 6 experience of 2021, and that is improved TSA baggage scanners. And hear me out, co-host.
Whoa.
I'm gonna explain this because it might sound weird, but recently I traveled to visit family, and the airport I flew through to visit family actually had a policy where, as normal, right, you would think when you go through the security checkpoint at the airport, you're required to, take off your shoes, take off your belt, over like extra layers of clothing. But most importantly, you're required normally to take out any electronics from your carry-on luggage that's bigger than a cell phone and place it into the little trays as it goes through the scanner. Well, for when I traveled through the airport, I didn't have to do any of that. They told me keep everything in your bags. I mean, I still had to take off my belt and shoes and whatnot, but all electronics could stay inside of your bag. You do not need to take those out. And what I can only assume is because we're finally here. The technology is here, folks. They can scan our bags without having us take out those laptops or game consoles. And for that, I have to say, is such an amazing thing. And thank God we have the technology.
See, that does actually sound super life-changing. Like, all of the stuff on my list pales in comparison to that.
That's true. Mine's definitely not as serious as that. Do you remember when they wanted us to take out any, snacks and put it on the belt? Like, in their own little buggy or basket? Yeah.
Sometimes they may still make me do that, depending on where I'm going. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And
they haven't done that in a long time.
I'm literally like, these almonds aren't going to hurt nobody.
Oh, no, the nut allergies are deadly.
Yeah, okay.
True.
Listen, hold on. I was retracting my statement as I was spinning.
Watch out, folks. If you're on a flight with Tiffany, you might get attacked by nuts.
So this one time, it had to have been 10, 15 years ago. I was on a flight or trying to get through security and they're like all snacks out of your bag in their own thing. Well, I didn't put all my snacks in one Ziploc baggie. Like I had like a billion individually wrapped snacks. So I had like all these individually wrapped candies. And so there was probably like 30 or 40 individually wrapped candies in this one basket. And I just look at the guy and I'm like, sorry, this is going to hold up things. It was so embarrassing.
Were you like grabbing them out of all these different pockets or something in your bag?
No, it was in my backpack. And they're like, you need to bring all your food out. And so I had to put it in its own basket. And then everyone's looking at me like, how many candies is this kid going to eat in one like 3-hour flight? But like, that's not the point. Like you buy, 100 count, you're not just going to bring 10 or 20. You're just going to bring the whole thing. Anyway, since then,
he's bringing 30.
Yeah, like this is confusing. I'm confused.
I've now gotten better about this. And even though they don't ask me to do that, I definitely put in its own Ziploc bag. Just in case.
No, yeah, so my thing is that you literally had 30 individually wrapped candies just loose in your bag. Like,
yeah,
that's
loose.
That's too much. I cannot.
Because listen, they're not loose. They're technically in my bag. But then when they said you needed to bring them out, I'm like, this is madness.
You're madness. You're an agent of chaos.
Listen, I'm just telling you. They no longer ask me to bring out candy, and it might be because of people like me. They're like, we have not found a bomb in anybody's candy. Let's just keep it in your bags, everybody. I don't know. Maybe. This is how change happens.
So, yeah, your bag was the bag.
The bag.
Was your candy bag.
Oh, the candy bag, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Can I just talk about my number 6?
Yeah, I honestly didn't expect my number 6 to have such a response, but it was a good conversation.
I mean, how could it not when it's literally out of left field?
Yeah, I was not expecting that at all.
I was not expecting that at all. Okay, anyway, so my number 6 is Witcher Season 2.
Ooh, nice.
So I don't think either of you have started Witcher
Nope.
Season 2. I binged it. It was a great time. I've never played the games nor read the books to completion. I started the first one like maybe 20, 30. I did. And then I just never finished it. Okay, so anyway. So I liked my time with The Witcher. I liked seeing a lot more of Geralt, Ciri, and Yennefer. And it was just a good time. I do know that there were some changes that apparently some fanboys and fangirls were not that excited about, but since I didn't really know the source material that well, I still enjoyed it. There were things that I wasn't completely on board with, but this is a spoiler-free situation, so I'm just not going to talk about that. But yeah, my number 6 is Witcher Season 2, and I think both of you should get to it soon.
Well, I have some questions, because one, I just need the world to know about the Christmas gift that I got from Tiffany.
Why are you airing dirty laundry right now?
So, a long time ago, a very long time ago, maybe when Witcher Season 1 came out.
Fall of 2020. Yeah.
Okay. So,
decades ago.
Just over a year. Then maybe that's not as bad. I lented the books because I'm definitely... Lent.
Okay.
Either way, we've heard it all 3 ways. Maybe. I lent the books to Tiffany.
2 books. 2 books.
2 books. And didn't really think anything of it. And then when I was opening these nicely wrapped gifts, I opened them up and there they were. Not used very much, which is great. She takes care of them though, so that's.
I don't manhandle things that I borrow, sir.
No. I wasn't saying that. But I am excited to watch Witcher Season 2. Do you think that it is easier to follow than Witcher Season 1? Because I feel like a majority of people that talked about Witcher Season 1, especially people who aren't familiar with the books or the game, kind of were shell-shocked a little bit because they went past, present, future, past, future. They went all over the place timeline-wise. Was it easier to follow this season?
Yes. It was very much easier.
Did you like this season better than the first season?
That's hard, but that's hard.
Okay.
Because one of my favorite characters is
Not
Yasker. And he wasn't in it as much as season 1. But
Gotcha.
I love that Ciri and Geralt were together for a majority of the show compared to season 1. You know what I mean? Like, season 1, they were together for 5 seconds. So, seeing those two together, I very much adored. It was cute.
Okay.
I have a question. Does Henry Cavill as Geralt remain S tier throughout season 2 as he was in season 1?
Yes, he does, in my humble opinion.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
I really like that people like talked about him on set as kind of like being an encyclopedia with the books. Like, people were talking about like how people should act, and he's like, well, actually, if you look in the Sword of Destiny chapter 4, this character kind of acted this way. Like, I love that about him. Like, I like that he's just a fan, like, unabashed fan of the series.
So, one of the other interesting things with watching Witcher season 2, though, is that I got a whole lot of other Witcher things recommended to me on Netflix. So I have yet to watch some of the animated shows or like animated movies. There's a lot more content on Netflix in the Witcher universe than I actually realized. So I'm going to have to catch up on that. But yeah, number 6, I recommend it if it's also like 8 episodes, I think. 8 to 10. Probably 8. So it's actually kind of a relatively quick watch. Mm-hmm. I recommend it.
So my number 6 is basically the reason why I have not watched Witcher Season 2. It was because I was watching the series finale of Money Heist. So this is what I would call my best old show of 2021, which is coming in as number 6 for me. Money Heist was my number 1 experience of 2020. It was I struggled with that. I was like, what year is it? It was fantastic. Came out of nowhere. International show set in Spain. It is just fantastic cast. And honestly, the reason why I put it on my list is because this is a show that meant so much to me over the past, basically, pandemic. Like, it was my first pandemic show. And while we're still in this pandemic, this series has become and gone away. And to me, I was really worried that they were not going to land well. Like, I thought it was just going to crash and burn at the end. It was not going to feel right. Like, it was just going to be rushed and put together kind of improperly. And honestly, like, it met all of my expectations, which were really high. Like, it's 5 seasons long now, and I would say every season hits so well. And while people are just like screaming to the rooftops that they should bring a season 6, they've already said nope. 5 seasons was what we wanted to do, and 5 seasons is what we're getting. They're gonna have spin-off series for some of the characters that kind of weren't around long enough to stick around for all 5 seasons, which I think is great. So we'll have things in the universe. But for me, it like almost brings like up a weird point of like, do we put too much pressure on these series? Like, these series that hit so high, and then at the end, we're kind of like, is it going to be like Game of Thrones? Is the last season just going to absolutely tank and just kind of like ruin the series from the beginning? Like, oh yeah, you should watch Game of Thrones, but you should watch Game of Thrones season 1 through 6. I was really worried it was gonna happen for Money Heist, but honestly, it hit, and it was emotional, and I actually finished it last night, and it was just beautiful all the way through.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's great to hear that. It seemed like they were very against extending it, as you said, that they planned for 5 seasons and they ended at 5 seasons. And I think with that, premeditated design in mind, that they're setting out to tell a story across 5 seasons, that's probably better for them to say, hey, we reached our goal and there's no point in extending this further. And I think that, as you said, it seemed to wrap the series well, at least, TV wise, and so that's great to hear.
I have been meaning to watch it, but I'm also a stickler of watching it in its original language. And so because it requires me to concentrate and to like read the subtitles, because my Spanish is pretty mediocre, like below average, I've just been a little bit hesitant to start it. But now that I know that it's done, that sounds like a wonderful like spring break situation.
Yeah,
like a week off.
I would urge everyone, if you're interested in it, watch it this year, because in a little bit over a year's time, that's when the first spin-off series is supposed to happen. And it's honestly one of my favorite characters, and I cannot wait. So definitely give it a watch. It's great.
All right. Moving on to my number 5. And this might come as a shock. It's not as shocking as my number 6, but my number 5 is F9.
What?
And for those of you that don't know, F9 as in Fast and Furious 9. And so let me explain my pick here, though, and why it's my number 5. Don't get me wrong. The movie, on a scale of 1 to 10, is like a 6. It's not a great movie. But the reason it's my number 5 is that, coming from watching the movie since, Fast and the Furious, right? The very first movie that came out, I think it was like 2002 or something like that, all those years ago. And me really loving at least the first 3. So the Fast and Furious, Too Fast, Too Furious, Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. Amazing movies. I really like the series when it was more focused on the racing, as the original first 3 were, as opposed to the shift to kind of more heist-like movies that they did when starting with Fast and Furious 4, excuse me. Or is it Furious 4? I don't even remember the names of the titles because they play around with the words a lot. But the reason it's my number 5 is because I think with the projected / announcement that the next 2 movies are the final 2 movies in the franchise. So F10 will be split into 2 parts. So it'll be F10 Part 1, F10 Part 2. I think F9 does a really good job in at least bringing back all the characters that are going to matter from the franchise and making you remember, hey, these are the people that have appeared in all the movies that are going to be relevant to the, I guess, like final encounter, let's say. And it's basically just a very good summary to say, if you skipped 4 through 8, which maybe a lot of you have, maybe you only watched the first movie back in early 2000s. I think this is basically a nice shortcut to say this is every character you're going to need to care about for the last 2 movies. And so I'd say if you didn't watch any of the other ones, you don't need to watch F9. Get the shortcut. I mean, the movie's bad. Don't watch it for it being a good movie. But if you want to watch it to at least know who all the characters are and also all the actors, right? It's got such a huge cast of characters, and most of them return. Albeit leaving out Gal Gadot's character, but basically everyone else like makes an appearance again. And so I'd say watch it just to see those characters. If you have any remote interest in F10 Part 1 and 2, which comes out, I think, in 2023 and 2024. And yeah, it's just a nice dumb time because honestly, how much more dumb can it get? Because in F9, they literally have a car in space. So you're saying nice. They've literally put cars everywhere, put cars in skyscrapers, put cars on trains, put cars on jets, put cars in space. Where else can they go? And it's going to culminate.
Have they gone
in
into
F10.
the ocean?
I think so. I don't remember, but I feel like the ocean's also kind of like a James Bond thing. So I don't know if that would be any like unique aspect because a lot of Bond cars are able to go underwater. So I'm not sure if that's super interesting. But hey, who knows, right? Because all they say is it's about family. So I mean, is this going to be like intergalactic travel as a family? Is that where we're going to infinity and beyond?
Yeah.
Who knows? So
my question for you is, like, The Rock is not coming, right, in F10?
I'm not sure
like
because I know there's
something
he's
recently.
Not.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's recent accounts that say he's at odds with Vin Diesel, and it seems like he's not interested. I don't know if it's on a, I guess, value standpoint that no amount of money would get him to come back, but I feel like if they threw a fat check at him, maybe he would come back, but I haven't looked into it to know. But personally, I don't really feel like he needs to come back because his character didn't appear till I think it was the 7th movie anyway. So despite him being as part of the franchise, he's not part of like the original core of characters. So I don't think it's super necessary, but it would be nice if he did come back.
That rivalry is hilarious because when Vin Diesel posted that picture to try to get The Rock to come back, or like there was some picture he posted, he photoshopped himself to be bigger than he actually was just so that he didn't look as small compared to The Rock. Like, those two together, like, it's something is so strange about that. Like, these two gigantic men, like, having this big ego battle. It's hilarious.
I mean, I also don't think that he needs, like, quote-unquote, a big fat check, because The Rock has been hustling hardcore, and he has a lot of businesses, and he's been in a lot of decent movies recently. Like, so that's why he's probably, like, not gonna sully himself with Fast and Furious, especially with his so-called beef.
See, what they do, they get Kevin Hart. They give Kevin Hart a fat check, and then Kevin Hart brings The Rock because, like, those two are, like, bound to the hip. So you get Kevin Hart, and then you get The Rock.
They're hilarious. But something a little bit more serious is my number 5, which is the Apple TV show called Foundation. Now, I have a brief 6 months of Apple TV. I'm thankful to the PlayStation ecosystem, I guess, because they were giving out 6 months of Apple TV to people with PlayStation 5s. So I ended up diving in to this sci-fi show called Foundation. It's based off a series of science fiction novels written by Isaac Asimov, who also wrote the book basis for the movie I, Robot, and his, like, 3 laws of robotics or whatever. So I need you guys to buckle in, because I didn't really expand much on The Witcher, because I feel like The Witcher is very, like, popular, like, as a franchise. But Foundation is very niche, I feel like, especially because I haven't really seen a lot of people, or even heard a lot of people say that they have an Apple TV subscription. But the Foundation show has Lee Pace and Gerald Harris in it as 2 of the main characters. Gerald Harris was also in Chernobyl, if you are unfamiliar with his work. But anyway, and Lee Pace was in the Hobbit movies and Pushing Daisies, which is an oldie but goodie. But anyway, so this show takes place, like, almost 10,000 years in the future of our, like, human existence. And we have created and used galactic travel. And so we can travel all over space. We've come in contact with a lot of different planets. We've met aliens, yada, yada. There's a new, like, civilization. There's a new, like, there are new religious orders. There's new ways of life. Anyway, so around 400 years ago, at the time that this takes place, an emperor of the Galactic Empire decided to start the genetic dynasty in which he literally clones himself. And so he's been ruling for, like, over 400 years. And the council of the rulers of this galactic empire are 3 clones of this original emperor. So at all times, there is a brother Dawn, which is the youngest one, brother Day, who's, like, the acting emperor, and brother Dusk, who is, like, the one that's semi-retired. And brother Day is the actual emperor. And so you see brother Day as a child growing into brother... Did I say brother Day? Brother Dawn. You see brother Dawn as a child growing into brother Day, and then brother Day gets older, turning into brother Dusk, and they end up, like, retiring or, like, basically killing brother Dusk when he gets way too old. And so, like, you have this cycle, right? That's why they have all these names. Anyway, there's a statistician that essentially says that the Dark Ages are coming, and humanity and civilization as we know it will be demolished and destroyed. However, he has a theory that can prevent the Dark Ages from like 30,000 years to only 300 years as long as they build the foundation. And the foundation is knowledge and information and all this stuff to help humanity like basically start over. Okay? This show is like 10 episodes. It's really good. Like the space travel's fascinating, the world building is fascinating, the whole genetic dynasty is so strange but so fascinating. Like at one point, one of the plot points with the clones, because you end up seeing one of the like 13 clone turned into 14 or whatever, right? Like Emperor 13, 14. And one of the clones is like, am I really the same person as someone else? Am I not my own person? There's even talk about a soul. Like, does a clone have a soul if you're a clone? Like, and just the sci-fi and the spaceships and the interplanetary travel. It is so interesting. And that's why this is my number 5, Foundation on Apple TV.
Is the show more focused around like the philosophy of like identity, or is there like any sort of conflict? Like, are people against building the foundation?
Yes. So basically the act of the foundation is almost like, or the thought of it, there are people that are like pro, like we need to build the foundation, we need to help humanity. And then you have the emperor who's like, this is not real. How can he predict the end of humankind? You know, with math, right? So the galactic emperor is trying to kibosh it. And then you have another mathematician who's this young girl who's like, I guess you expect her to be like 17, 18 or something. She essentially confirms his math. And that's where the drama happens.
Theory.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Or like vouches for it. Vouches for the math, saying, yes, the civilization's coming to an end, like our time, and we can prevent a long dark age if we do build the foundation. And that's the whole premise of it. And there's actually intersecting like 3 different storylines, because it's like these statisticians, the emperor, and like something else that I'm not going to say. But yes.
Did you say that this was a limited series, or is this just first series of who knows how much?
So well, it was confirmed for season 2, which I'm eagerly anticipating. And to be honest, I will, if I have to, I will pay for like a month of Apple TV. So Apple TV does this thing where it releases the shows weekly, which is so offensive to me because I'm, audience, I'm a binger. So if I have to, when season 2 finishes airing, I will like pay for a month of Apple TV just to watch. I'm like that fascinated by the whole concept of the show.
Is that the only show on Apple TV that you're willing to do that for?
Yeah, I mean, like, you hear my hesitation, right? I started this one show on Apple TV. Oh, wait. Yeah, I tried Mythic Quest, which I haven't finished yet. But, like, it's funny. It's just there's a lot of yelling. But it's really comical of the games industry. And then I tried watching C, which has that actor who played Khal Drogo and Aquaman. I forgot his name. Anyway, the world's gone blind. Everyone's blind, and it's called the show is called C, and it's like it's also in our universe, like in our human civilization, and humans have come to adapt to be blind. Everyone's blind. They've adapted to be blind, and now the concept of sight is considered sacrilegious. However, there appears to be some people being born with the ability to see. And there's drama, and they're called witches. They're like, you know what I mean? Like,
did you like that show?
So I watched.
It sounds like it's not made or top 6. I don't know.
It's not made. You're right,
this
Matt.
Is.
Yeah,
that's true. One last question.
We can take this
When's
offline.
the PS5 deal end for Apple TV? Has it already ended?
You have 1 year. I think we have until the summer to like turn on the sub.
Okay, because I need to
So
do that.
Matt,
I'll watch the Foundation. You've sold me.
Like,
I'll tell you.
Do you like space?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was very into space in the last like 5 months. So, I mean, I'm still into space now, but yeah. Space show, great space show.
You know, it usually goes with space, time. And you know what time I loved this year? Which was watching Loki. My favorite MCU show
yeah.
of the year, who dealt
dang.
with time all throughout.
Yeah.
And really began this whole multiverse of madness, I guess you could say. I am very bold in saying that it's definitely my favorite MCU show of the year. This 2021 was the year of MCU shows. We had everything: WandaVision, Loki, Falcon and Winter Soldier. The most recent one we had was Hawkeye. And honestly, it all kind of paled in comparison to the highs of Loki that just was so consistent throughout the entire season. I think that Hawkeye was really, really promising, maybe fell off towards the end. And I didn't feel that with Loki. I think Loki was I would say the only finale of an MCU show that I thought lived up to the episodes that happened right before it. Like, I thought that Loki as a character was someone that I was so heartbroken when he died. When he died.
Yeah.
I was like, that is just a waste of a beautiful character. And I'm so excited that they brought him back. I think this is really exciting for me because I think season 2, it had already been announced at the end. It was like the mid or after credit scene of the finale saying that it's coming back for season 2. Could not be happier. I think this is a fantastic story, and I think it has brought in a villain that is going to be the next Thanos. And so no matter what, at the end of phase 4 or phase 5, whenever he becomes the big bad like Thanos was, we'll look back and be like, oh yeah, I forgot he started in a Disney Plus show. Like, who else could really say that? So for me, Loki takes the cake for my best MCU show and my number 5 on the list.
Love it. In love with it.
I agree with you, Matt. Yeah, that I think what made it so great, because I enjoyed it a lot too. Spoilers, it's not in my top 6. But the fact that it had such great, like, grand stakes and how it plays into the bigger universe as a whole, I think puts it kind of in that tier above the rest of the MCU shows this year. Not to say that those shows didn't have important storylines to explore, but there seems to be a lot more building within Loki that obviously things like maybe something else that appears on my list, delves into a little bit, and also just kind of builds for the MCU as a whole to say, hey, it's not necessarily cinematic because it's not in the cinemas, but these shows on Disney Plus do contribute to the storytelling as a whole, and it would be better if you experience them because that'll help your knowledge base. But yeah, Loki, great stuff. All right, moving on to my number 4. I don't know how much you guys will have to say about this because it's not it's a song, but not to say this is my favorite song of 2021 even, but it's one of my favorite songs. And similar to last year, I shouted them out, but it's a song from my favorite Korean pop group, and that is Dreamcatcher, and the song is Because. And so this song released in August of last year. And, for those of you that don't know, obviously summertime, August, it gets hot, especially in Korea. It gets very hot and humid in Korea. And kind of one of the hallmarks of Korean culture is that typically during the summer months, Korean media usually releases what they basically consider like spooky specials or like horror specials. And that is to fall in line with the idea that to say, hey, when it's hot outside, what helps you cool down? That cold shiver down your spine. And so with that in mind, Because by Dreamcatcher has that flair to it in that it's not necessarily a horror song, but it has spooky elements to it. and but it stays with their kind of rock electronic vibe. So this is similar to their other title releases, but it has that, I guess, haunting sound, a lot of haunting imagery in the music video itself. And I think, it's just a great song, right? I love Dreamcatcher. I love most of the music they put out, but especially with this is the first time they've done something kind of in line with this idea to say, hey, let's also contribute something to help people cool off during the hot summer months. So I really enjoy it. And also it's the fact that it is one of the few songs that have stayed with me throughout the whole year. Because, right, we all listen to music. I listen to music a lot, working out while I'm working, just on in the background. And the fact that this is one of those few songs that I've actually remembered that, hey, this came out last year, that I think it speaks to say that it's a good song, at least in my opinion.
Okay, cool. I knew you'd pull a song out here. I don't have any songs in my list, but
I like it. I listen just like as you were talking, just like on the side. I like the undertones of it, like the like just like the almost like staccato part of it. The video even without the music is very entertaining. Like it reminds me of like back to like the 90s of like Backstreet Boys would like have almost like this gothic look of like them just dressing up for Halloween in some of their music videos, and it like had nothing to do with Halloween. So it's kind of like a extraordinaire type flair to it.
And that music video was shot in an abandoned theme park in Korea. And so that also adds to the like kind of spooky vibes as well, just with the setting and itself.
I'm going to have to give that a listen a little bit later. I didn't know if I could give it my full attention right now, because I was just really excited to talk about my number 3, which is, or rather my number 4. Sorry, I shouldn't skip ahead. I am excited for both. My number 4 is the Netflix original show Arcane, which is a League of Legends story. Cool. It takes place in the cities of Zaun and Piltover. And honestly, I just really enjoyed my time there. I really recommend this to those even who aren't familiar with League of Legends, because it was a compact story. It was a tight story. It had bonds, it had sisters, it had friendships, it had family, and it was a 3-part, 3-episode each series. So 9 episodes total, and each of them kind of watched like their own movie. And I'm so excited that a season 2 was announced, because I really want to know more of what's going to happen with some of these characters. I think fans of the game would also enjoy a lot of things. You can actually listen to our peer review episode of Arcane, where Alex and I talk about our thoughts and feelings about the show. Alex and I have been longtime League of Legends fans. And so this had to make my list, because I have been recommending it to everybody since I've watched it.
Great show.
I started the first episode, and I started at home. It's like one of those things where you're at home and your mom, like, my mom would just like comes in and just like, hey, did I tell you about so-and-so up the like, she would just like come in and like keep coming in. I was like, I can't focus on this show right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to like do some other time. So maybe now that the holidays are over, maybe I'll give it a go. All right. My number 4 is a show as well, coming from Amazon Prime Video. How many times does that happen? Am I right?
I mean, pretty frequently.
Actually, The Boys. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, I stand corrected. But this is Invincible. This is a show. This is an animated show, actually.
Was that this year or last year?
It was
or last year.
Yeah, 2021. So it was written by Robert Kirkman. This is actually from his comics. So Robert Kirkman, who's known for writing The Walking Dead and being a producer on the show, he also made another comic book line called Invincible, which is based on a young boy who is basically son of an alien race superhero guy, and he inherits his powers, and it's kind of like a coming of age story. It definitely has similar tropes to a lot of DC comics. there are people that look just like some other DC comic heroes. Like, oh, you see this person, that kind of looks like Aquaman, or this person kind of looks like Batman. It is funny to see kind of their interpretation of heroes just in general, because it does take a good look at what it means to be a hero in a otherwise normal world. Like what that means. What does it mean to have collateral damage? And I think it's just a really cool story. Season 1 came, and honestly, if you want a shock value, I was even talking about it today. I was playing some Dead by Daylight after work today, and was talking to Yasser, and I was telling him about Invincible, because I was just like thinking about last year, and he's like, I never saw, like, what is it? I was like, if you want a shock value, watch the first episode. Probably the one of the most shocking episodes I've ever seen in my entire life. More shocking than anything else I've seen this year. And it's just great. It's really good. I think some of the problems that people have is like the animation not completely being the greatest. It's just because Amazon wasn't willing to give them enough funding, but they've already funded them for 2 more seasons. So I picture that season 2 is going to be pretty excellent. It hasn't started any recording, but hopefully that comes at some point. I don't know if they haven't started now. I feel like it's due for 2024 at this point, but we'll see when it comes out. I'm excited. I bought the comics, haven't read through them. It's a finished series, so everything is already out there. But I'm excited to read it and then eventually see it. But really good. If you guys haven't finished it, have you guys started it?
I started it, but I haven't finished it.
Okay. Yeah.
With the announcement of more seasons coming, I think I'm interested in getting through it once it's like kind of more out there, like more episodes are out. Because I've realized, especially when it comes to shows that kind of have that shocking first season in terms of like really big hype build up to say, oh, this is really good, right? Like not a lot of people had expectations going into it. It puts it on the backlog, right? Because like I've mentioned in other episodes, when people have that initial hype, I keep an eye on it, and it really, if it stands the test of time and few years out, right? Like who knows, whenever seasons 2 and 3 come out, if people are still saying, hey, this is a great show, then I think that'll probably be the time where I just binge through all 3 seasons at once. But definitely I'm keeping one eye on this.
The old style of Teen Titans, like the original version,
the original Teen Titans,
yeah,
the only one I've watched. I don't know what this
exactly.
was. It Teen Titans like Go or something?
Teen Titans Go, yeah, we don't talk about that.
Not that.
It almost is like an adult version of that Teen Titans show, like it, which is one of my best compliments I could give to it, because that was one of my favorite shows growing up. So if you're a fan of that growing up, you should totally give it a try, because it'll be your jam.
Sounds good. All right, moving on to the top half of our top 6. So starting with my number 3. And, for the record, right, this is a spoiler-free episode. The things that we mention here, we're not going to be spoiling anything, so don't worry about that. We don't need to supply a spoiler warning or what have you. But my number 3 is Spider-Man No Way Home. And
Excellent.
This is clocking in at my number 3 in a similar vein, because I think it's, at least to me, conceptually similar to how F9 is to that franchise, and that Spider-Man No Way Home is very much about kind of closing a lot of loops and kind of giving you closure to a lot of things, and kind of saying this is what it means for all these previous things that have happened and what it all culminates in. And I think the fact that it does such a great job in doing that, presenting the imagery, presenting such good dialogue, character relationships, like at its like peak rate of being strained and tested, I think is they did such a good job. And also the fact that, right, this is Sony Pictures, Columbia, in partnership with Marvel. So this is kind of Sony managing this side, but also them still doing a great job, right? Despite this not being I guess, 100% Marvel production. I think there's a lot to respect here. And the fact that it really seems like, Tom Holland has done such a great job in like making his own version of Spider-Man and kind of showing that on screen compared to, the other versions we've got cinematically at least, and even, via other mediums, right? Such as the animated shows or the games. And I think with that, he's done a good job in I guess making his Spider-Man his own, and also just being, I guess, in general, a good actor. And so definitely it holds number 3. Much better movie than F9 comparatively. If, like I said, F9's like a 6 at best, more like a 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd probably give Spider-Man No Way Home at least like an 8.5.
10 out of 10. No.
I don't know about that. But definitely it's a good time.
It is my top Marvel movie of this year that came out. Of the 4 that came out in 2021. Spider-Man No Way Home was excellent. An excellent movie. I love it to bits. I've seen it twice in the theater. The second viewing was not as good as the first, in the sense that I sat next to Neanderthals who answered the phone and was on the phone constantly throughout the movie. It was an affront to cinema watching. But the movie was so good.
I agree. It was my favorite MCU movie this year. And so I'm actually just going to jump over you, Tiffany, and just say that it's also my number 3. Just so that we have it all in the same place, because this movie did everything I wanted it to. It had a lot of hype connected to it, a lot of expectations, and it kind of goes back to what I said about Money Heist. Meeting expectations is probably one of the hardest things that you can do in any sort of media, and I think it just nailed it. I thought that it was powerful and emotional. I think that the character development that they have been working on for the past movies came to a culmination, and like honestly just showed the strength of Spider-Man as a character in the MCU. When you're next to like Robert Downey Jr. and everyone else, really, like I feel like Spider-Man's almost stepping into what Iron Man meant to the MCU, and I see Spider-Man now as kind of like taking the helm of Iron Man in the Avengers. And so I'm excited to see where it goes. I really enjoyed the ending that we won't discuss, but I think that it sets up this franchise to be one of my most excited. I'm most excited about Spider-Man as a franchise after this movie, as I was before. I don't know where it falls as far as my Spider-Man movies, between Spider-Man Homecoming, Far From Home, and No Way Home. I do think that it's better than Far From Home. I'm still on the fence if No Way Home is better than Homecoming, but for me, the grand spectacle of this movie was far beyond anything else. Like, we're finally back in the theaters, and I felt like a pre-COVID Matt sitting in that movie theater with people cheering. I was
Clapping.
I was in a group of 5 people, right? And we're sitting, and people are clapping at the end of the movie, and I look around, and none of us are clapping. I was like, I'm glad to see that we're all aligned in this way. But fantastic. It was my favorite movie experience of the year. So that's why it comes back at number 3. And fun fact, 40% of 2021 box office sales in the US were from the MCU. And this was leading the charge. So there you go.
I could believe it. I'm kind of still reeling from the fact that Matt just skipped over my number 3, but here it is. My number 3 is a Disney Plus subscription. Everyone who doesn't have a Disney Plus subscription, go freaking get it now, okay? Like, all of the MCU shows, all the MCU movies, there for the picking. Precious baby Grogu. Like, the subscription is where it's at. A lot of phone companies seem to just be giving it away for some reason, too. Like, you can get 1 year free. There's holiday deals. If you like Hulu, you can combine your subscription for an even lower cost. Come on. Get on the bandwagon and get a Disney Plus subscription. That is my number 3. just so that I could encompass all of the MCU in my number 3. There you go.
Not sponsored by Disney, by the
I
way.
wish.
I wish it was.
I wish I were sponsored by Disney Plus.
Yeah,
Get it.
It's just from the sheer number of shows that we've
Content.
talked about. Like, look at our
Content.
peer reviews this past year. How many of them are from Disney Plus? Quite a few. So, it's pretty good. Hawkeye ended, and then Book of Boba started coming out. Like, they missed no time. Like, it was our Marvel Wednesdays turned into Star Wars Wednesdays, and like they're just not missing a beat. So I agree. I didn't even think about that as as something to shout out, but Disney Plus is definitely getting it, especially for me because I'm working through an MCU rewatch right now with someone who's never watched the MCU in order, and it's been invaluable. You have it all there, and especially if the Spider-Man movies show up at some point on Disney Plus, it's going to get even better.
Yeah, 2021 was also a year where I got one of my friends who'd like seen 3 of the MC movies. I got her to watch WandaVision, and then she started her own chronological rewatch.
Nice.
And like is essentially caught up. She even included Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in that, which is wild. But yeah, $8 a month. Get yourself some Disney Plus.
All right, moving on to my number 2 pick. And my number 2 pick is my favorite song of the year. And I'm going to link this to my co-hosts so that if they want to take a gander, they can while I go on and talk about it. But that is the song Rain to Be by ONEWE. And so, you know, first of all, this isn't a group I know a lot about. It's not a group that I really paid attention to before this song. But this is a song that came up, you know, in my recommendeds. It's a song that just comes out right because it's Korean and it's of the pop nature. But ONEWE is a band, so these aren't like quote unquote just idols. Like they actually play the instruments like in the music. And the reason this is my favorite song of the year of 2021 is that one, the music video itself is just a very memorable music video. A lot of interesting imagery in that there's a lot of water involved while they're playing instruments. Obviously, I know the instruments are probably fake in this regard, or they're not powered because you know electronics and water don't mix well. But the music video is visually interesting, and also just the fact that because it is a band, and there are very few bands these days, or Korean bands at least these days, that really gain traction kind of in the wider public sphere. You know, because typically you have things like Blackpink, you know, penetrating to the West, and also BTS coming to the West, but those are just idol groups that sing and dance. And the fact that ONEWE is actually, you know, performing the instruments makes it such a more interesting performance to watch. And the fact that I really like the song. It's a nice mix of the actual instrumental, but also very surprisingly good vocals. And it's just something that, you know, it came out even earlier in the year. I think it came out around March or April, around that time frame. So this is a song I've been listening to for a while, but it's also another song that's really kept with me throughout the whole year. And yeah, it's just a good time. You know, it's something that also, not to say it speaks to me on a meaningful level, because I don't necessarily listen to songs for the lyrics, but I think is just a nice song to listen to and for whatever mood you're into. And yeah, I think it's just a nice listen.
This song is more mellow than I would ever imagine for you to enjoy this much. For it to be your number 2. That's wild. But it is very pretty. I like it.
I'm gonna be music videos. Like, they're so entertaining.
Yeah, they're outside of a box, usually a box of light where they just dance. Now they're like outside in public, but
now they're inside of a box under the ground because they're in a pool.
In a pool, yeah.
My number 2 is Spider-Man: No Way Home, so we can move on.
Anything
Go watch
else to add?
I already talked. I raved about it. You're restricting me to a spoiler-free gush
It's
fest.
true.
That's near impossible. I've said what I could say.
I'm actually surprised that we were able to talk as much as we did without spoiling anything. But spoilers are everywhere. So honestly, if anyone's listening to this podcast, they've probably already been spoiled. which is like the biggest reason why I watched it as soon as it came out. Because I was like, my friends aren't going to keep quiet. They're not. I know them too well. They're going to be posting something. Yeah.
I would have called out sick if I somehow. No, I'm just kidding. I made sure I had vacation time. Like, I don't play games. Are you kidding me? May 6th? I'm not working. Now the issue is with that is that I need to make sure that I'm also not working on May 5th. So that's just going to be a personal situation for me, but I'll figure it out.
Fair enough. Well, my last TV show on my list, which is actually pretty TV show heavy, looking back at it. But this is something that we've already done a peer review on. Gerald joined me to talk about my favorite TV show of the year, which was Squid Game. This definitely took the world by storm. It was basically the best example of a zeitgeist of this year for me. This show was entertaining and made me think, and just the amount of content that came around it, people speculating what could be happening next, and just like people making Roblox tournaments that were based on Squid Game. Like, the amount of hype that went around this and the memes were everywhere. This show, in my mind, 2021, this was the show that took 2021, in my opinion. I think that it did a fantastic job of being Netflix's #1 show until Arcane came around. But, like, I think those beautiful 2 weeks that it was #1, it was great. And it was something where Gerald actually texted me yesterday that he was watching, is it Into the Borderlands or
Alice
I forgot.
Alice of Borderlands.
Alice
in the Borderlands.
Okay.
Alex, whatever you saw that show, what is it called?
I think it's Alice in Borderland.
Alice in Borderlands. Yes, he started that, and he was asking like if I had gone into it, because it's very similar premise. It's also a South Korean
It's Japanese.
production. Oh, it's Japanese.
Yeah, it's Japanese.
Oh, excellent. So it's not, but he really is enjoying it. Not as much as Squid Game, which is what I was worried about. But I might give that a try. But for me, I thought this was a fantastic TV show, one that I recommend to a lot of people. Right now, after the hype, it's kind of weird if you haven't seen it at this point, if you ever will. But if somehow you've been living under a rock and you're trying to catch up on what 2021 was about, go watch Squid Game and see. And then go look at some of the memes from 6 months ago and enjoy them.
I guess I'm a part of that group because I still haven't seen it myself.
I can't believe it.
It's so wild to me how popular it got. Just because when I watched it, it just was like another Korean thriller drama. And for this to be the one to get worldwide renown really surprised me. But part of it, I believe, is because they actually dubbed this show. And there's very few Korean dramas that have English dubbing. So that probably helped. But I was also like, oh, I wonder like what made them decide to dub this show and not some others. But I did enjoy my time with it, and I do think it's worth a watch.
Also, I think it's the theme of the show, right? Because it's a battle royale. And battle royales are hot stuff these days. We have PUBG, Fortnite, Apex Legends. Like, that genre is like stemming from stuff like the Hunger Games, a decade ago now, right? Of people just liking, can you survive till the end? And like, what are these characters willing to do to make that happen? So I think just, structurally it's interesting from that standpoint.
Alex, you should definitely give it a watch because it delves so deep into kind of the human experience a little bit. Like,
I'm
beyond
gonna be honest,
just the games. It's so good.
Over the winter holiday season, I did start the first episode, and it was so sad to me that I stopped watching and I watched a different Korean drama.
Yeah, and then he's
Interesting.
since watched 3 other Korean dramas that are more sad, if not as sad.
No, they're not
as-
more sad. Not
They
as
were
many
as
people
sad.
die in those other Korean dramas, okay?
It's
I
as
just know that
sad.
there's a lot of death in Squid Game, which makes me sad, but also the very beginning, the first like 20 minutes of the first episode of Squid Game made me very sad, so it was kind of hard for me to watch it. But I will continue.
Okay.
I will finish it one day. I make that
One day.
promise.
Maybe
One day.
it'll make your 2022 list.
Maybe, yeah, here we are in 2022, but we're getting ahead of ourselves here. Because we got to get to our number ones. And unlike last week, I propose that we don't try a guessing game about what our number ones are, because I feel like because
We won't
experiences
guess it.
is so broad that it could be anything. You know, you guys didn't see my number 6 coming. I didn't see Tiffany's number 3 coming. So I think it's just too broad. So with that, I'm just going to say what my number 1 is, and it's something that has already been mentioned on the show previously, and that is Riot Games and Netflix's and Fortitude's production
Wow.
of the show Arcane.
You're number 1.
And this is my number 1, and I'm going to keep this short because Tiffany talked about it, and I mentioned when she talked about it, I thought it was a great show. I think this is a great show on the basis that you do not need to know anything about League of Legends, and you never need to play the game to, I think, even care about this show or to care about what's happening to need to know, because I think the show does an amazing job in just being a good show in and of itself. And while if you do have knowledge of the game and its characters, there's a lot of references you might get, and especially things you might be hypothesizing about for future seasons of the show, or at least one season, right? Because we know a season 2 is coming, and that's great. But I think the fact that this is such a good show in and of itself, right? It establishes its characters. It goes through, development for all of them, and it kind of closes it maybe in a little bit open-ended way, up to interpretation for how that is. No spoilers here. But I think, yeah, and that's a great thing, because not to say that I advise against people playing the game, but I would say League of Legends is a very hard game to get into, especially now that the game's been out for almost 13 years. I think it went into beta in 2009. And so a lot of people that are playing this game have been playing it for a long time, like Tiffany and I. It's not necessarily new player friendly, but I think if you're interested in the world, Arcane just is the best bet to get into this and get started.
I feel
I
like
love
the
the
art
show.
of Arcane is second to none as far as animation goes this year. From the brief moment that I did watch of the first episode, and then also when I was like playing around with the thumbnail, looking at some of the art online, and I was like, dang, this is beautiful. Like, this is really nice looking. Like, I can't find an animation style that I like better from this year. And I barely experienced any of it. So I'm excited to watch it. And then I'll listen to your guys' peer review and close the loop.
The aesthetic is beautiful, and I love it. And the music's the show has pretty good music too.
Shout out to Imagine Dragons.
Yeah. See, I like Imagine Dragons. I know some people like scoff at it, but I like them, okay?
I kind of
I like
hate
them.
that like people get into this thing where it's like, oh yeah, it's cool to hate Nickelback. Or like it's cool to like hate Nicolas Cage. And I'm like, people, Nicolas Cage way back in the day was fantastic. Have you ever seen Con Air, The Rock? Like, come on. National Treasure? But I feel like Imagine Dragons is the newest like martyr on like the internet's list, is like, yo, Imagine Dragons sucks. And it's like, I don't mind Imagine Dragons. Like, is it bad to like Imagine Dragons?
I love Imagine Dragons. Also, Nicolas Cage voicing like Spider Noir and Into the Spider-Verse. Freaking masterpiece, okay?
It was great.
Okay.
Yeah. I have no problem with Nick Cage.
So I think I'm going to need everyone to kind of buckle their seatbelts, because
Mine's
my
been
number...
buckled since Foundation. So
Okay. So Matt and I are healthcare professionals. We're both inpatient pharmacists. And my number 1 experience for 2021 and recommendation is to get the COVID vaccine. Before we started recording, I was like, I think my number 1's going to be
Controversial?
controversial. I was having a
Spell it out. Spell it out.
I was getting nervous. I'm getting nervous right now. But so 2020, we're still in this pandemic. This pandemic just keeps getting worse. You know, we had the Delta variant, we have Omicron variant now. I think everyone, if you care about your health and you care about your loved one's health, should go get COVID vaccines. We have a lot of data now to even support getting booster shots. So I think the vaccine is the number one protection that you can have against the COVID-19 pneumonia. And if you get sick with COVID and you don't have the vaccine, everything that we use to treat you is still very theoretical. You know, we don't have we have more long-term data right now regarding the COVID vaccines than we do the treatments that we're using for COVID patients. So that's my soapbox. I'll get off it now. You can at me, write on our Gmail, tell me why you agree or disagree, but
leave a comment on YouTube.
Leave a comment on YouTube. Please be civil. Please don't be rude. I only care about your health.
Wouldn't that be the first thing that people actually comment on our videos for? It's about the COVID vaccine. You did it. I think it's a good soapbox to be on. I think
like the first chance I got when I was eligible, healthcare professionals were eligible to get the COVID vaccine. Are you kidding me? Yeah, I had questions. I'm not usually an early adopter with most things. I like to get the lay of the land. I like to see reviews before I get all up in there. You know what I mean? But I was like, nah, I don't play games with health. Give me that vaccine. And I got it. And I feel safe. And I have yet to get COVID. Thank you. Good day.
Yeah. I agree. I do think that some of the memes have been funny. It was like, leave it to COVID. Like, this is not the reason why I would ever want to learn the Greek alphabet.
Yeah. Yeah. They're not even going in order. Or at least, like, it's like the ones that are getting big are coming out of order. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 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 Go get vaccinated. It's definitely worth it. I agree. All right, my number one experience is not something on a screen, and so I put it as my number one experience because I finally was able to travel some this year in a place that I actually initially had planned to go to on March 2020. If you remember back to what you were doing in March 2020, you were probably starting to work from home because that's when the pandemic really happened on the East Coast. And it was a plan of mine to go with some of my old co-residents to the Grand Canyon. And I actually got to go this past fall. So I saw the Grand Canyon for the first time. I went to Sedona, Arizona with some friends, and it was a fantastic experience. It was unlike anything else I've ever seen. One, to just travel after all of us are inpatient pharmacists, and we've all been working through the pandemic. And, you know, it's been a tough time just in general, but especially in healthcare, I feel like it's been a little bit tough, and we were able to just relax. We were able to relax, and we saw Antelope Canyon, which is probably the best thing I've ever done in my entire life. Was something that happened this year. If you haven't seen Antelope Canyon, pictures of it, it is just beautiful. And there's nothing like it. There's honestly nothing like it. If you have a chance to head out to Arizona, really great hiking. We went on a ton of hikes in a very short 5-day trip, but it was a ton of fun. And it was something where I really enjoy hiking. I enjoy being outside. Do quite a bit of hiking here in my backyard in Virginia with the Appalachian Trail right on our doorstep. But, you know, being out in Arizona, just seeing that terrain, so different. Really enjoyed it. Definitely my top experience of the year.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm also looking forward to the next time I get to travel. Not necessarily to the Grand Canyon like you, but, you know, to some sort of outdoor destination. I'm excited. But with that, I think that wraps our top 6 experiences of 2021. So if y'all out there listening or watching, agreed or disagreed with some of the things we mentioned today, let us know. Leave a comment down below or write into rxp.podcast@gmail.com or tweet at us at rxp_podcast. If you like the video, then like it. And if you like the videos and content we make, subscribe to the channel. And with that,
shout out to Grandmaster Doug.
I was about to shout out Grandmaster Doug for providing the music for the show. Thank you. And with that, until next time, take care. Watch out, folks. If you're on a flight with Tiffany, you might get attacked by nuts.
Content.